Radha Krishna Bho Gopinath Sam Kund Radha Kund Giri Jai Vrindavan Dham ki Jai Navadvip Dham ki Jai Ganga Mai ki Jai Jamuna Mai ki Jai Guru Dwarka Dham ki Jai Swami Bhaktivinoda ki Jai. All glories to that. All glories to that. Thank you very much.
So, Hare Krishna, dear devotees, please once again accept my respectful obeisances. All glories to His confounder Acharya Srila Prabhupada, all glories to His Sri Guru and Gauranga. You're welcome, Manidhara Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much for honoring our invitation.
10 to 11, 11, 12, 1,
Yeah,
2, 2.
I think this is the first time you're coming onto our Hare Krishna platform.
So we can start? Yes?
Yes, so we can start now. The devotees will be joining as we go along.
Okay.
Yeah, usually within the next 5-10 minutes, more devotees will be joining us. So I'll put the verse on the screen and then we can take it over from there.
Okay. But we can start to read, right?
Yes, you can start at least.
Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So first of all, I would like to thank everybody that I can join this, for me, quite a unique meeting while I was traveling lots of places, but I was never in Africa. So it is wonderful to be, at least in this form, having the association of devotees on this continent. So I was asked today to read from Srimad Bhagavatam. This is the second canto, chapter 7, text 12. Here in this chapter, we find detailed descriptions of all the incarnations of the Lord. Here today we are going to hear about Matsya, or the incarnation of the Lord in form of a fish. So it's stated here, Matsya Yuganta Samaye Manu no Palabdaho Kshoniyamayo Nikila Jiva Nikaya Ketaha Vishramsitan Urubhaye Salile Mukan Me Adaya Tatra Vijahara Haveda Margan. Translation. At the end of the millennium, the would-be Vaivasvata Manu of the name Satyavrata who see that the Lord in the fish incarnation is the shelter of all kinds of living entities, up to those in earthly planets. Because of my fear of the vast water at the end of the millennium, the Vedas came out of my, means Brahma's, mouth, and the Lord enjoys those vast waters and protects the Vedas. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. During one day of Brahma, there are 14 manus, and at the end of each manu, there is a devastation up to the earthly planets. And the vast water is fearful even to Brahma. So in the beginning of the would-be Vaivasvata Manu, such devastation would be seen by him. There would be many other incidents also, such as the killing of the famous Sankashura. This foretelling is by the past experience of Brahmaji, who knew that in that fearful, devastating scene, the Vedas would come out of his mouth. But the Lord, in his fish incarnation, not only would save all the living entities, namely the demigods, animals, men, and great sages, but would also save the Vedas. Namam Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamini Iti Namini Namaste Saraswati Devam Gauravani Pracharne Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashkachidadatan. So in all his incarnations, as we know from Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is fulfilling the same purpose to protect and preserve the religious principles which occasionally get forgotten or lost in the human society. He also, as a part of his mission, protects his devotees and annihilates also the demons. Annihilation of demons is not his primary task, because demons have one tendency to annihilate themselves amongst each other. But to protect his devotees, this is his heartfelt, cherished desire. And as we can hear today, the protection of the Vedas is most important. We know how quickly things get forgotten. And we know how quickly things get even not only forgotten, but much worse, they get perverted. We have the tendency to speculate and to add to the original meaning of something our own interpretation. This mentality was heavily addressed by Srila Prabhupada, who many times stated that actually his only contribution was not to change anything. Changing. This is the disease of the conditioned soul. In the name of progress, in the name of advancement, we always try to change something, and we think this is improvement. But from Krishna's point of view, there are things which should never be changed. They are actually guarantee for advancement in themselves. They don't need to be improved or changed or tampered with. So the Vedas in themselves is the ultimate knowledge for humankind. We have all kinds of Vedas, Vedas which address our living in the material world, and Vedas which address how to also get liberated from this material existence, which is, after all, not our natural home. So all this was told to us by Srila Prabhupada. Prior to meeting him, this is quite different from those who are born in India or who have some spiritual or pious background. I'm coming from the Western line, being born into total darkness about spiritual life, never heard anything about Vedas, Krishna, neither from my parents or anybody else I met, to the point I first time met a Mataji on the street, who gave me a Back to Godhead magazine. That was 1972. Even then, holding that magazine in my hand, I thought it was something very peculiar. It was, I'm coming from an artistic background, so just the graphical design of the magazine looked very primitive to me. It was not something very sophisticated, which would address my artistic senses. But I was very attracted instantly. I kept that magazine. I went through the pages back and forth. Each single page, each single image looked completely strange to me. I never saw anything like this. I never saw people looking like this. I never saw anything. When I saw first time the picture of Krishna, I was thinking, well, this is really amazing. And then it was written, this is how God looks like. Well, that was a big news. I come back to these times and I remember that because it makes me more to understand today how strange it must be for people to be confronted with the Vedas and with Vedic knowledge as such. Like I'm now broadcasting or speaking to devotees on the African continent, which is for me like another planet, it's a huge continent, including so many people, so many various people, and so many various countries. Still, we can safely say, before Srila Prabhupada's appearance, there was nobody actually confronted with Krishna consciousness. Practically not one single, there's no record. I don't think there's any record in the history of the African continent that there was actually some Vaishnavas going around preaching. Yeah. So can you imagine how amazing it is that I can sit today here and look at you and speak to you, to Africa? This is just in itself. It's only 50 years ago. It's such a short period. 50 years, 60 years, or 100 years, it's nothing from Vedic point of view. So it's really amazing, and I would never be able to do that, and I will never meet you, and you will never see me if Srila Prabhupada wouldn't be here. It is only thanks to him that we can come together and unite on this platform of Krishna consciousness, which is, we are the living proof of his universal mercy and of the fact that from Vedic point of view, there is no difference between the souls as such. No, we have different bodies, undoubtedly, and we act differently. Yeah, like I can never move as a person moving in a black body. It's not possible. It's when I see a black man moving, I go, how do they do that? I have no way. They have a very special way to move. They have a very special way to think. They have a very special, and actually the bodily differences are monumental. I mean, I don't understand it. Somebody would ask me to describe the mentality of a black-bodied person, I would have no idea what I'm talking about. I never understand anything, Yeah. Anytime even I meet black devotees, it's so entertaining because I understand they are devotees immediately. But how they move and how they act is quite different from how I could give you now a trip from all the countries I lived through and visited and this. How different from the bodily point of view we can be. But it doesn't matter. This is the only United Nation movement. Prabhupada always said, this is the only platform we can unite. Outside of that, on a bodily platform, it will never happen. It's impossible. The karmic destiny which dominates our actions is so strong that whatever people try and however they try to become one and the same, and it will never happen. But we are doing it here in the name of Krishna consciousness. Oh yeah, on that platform we can immediately meet, and it's so easy. I talk about Krishna, you talk about Krishna. I talk about Prabhupada, you could talk about Prabhupada. we talk about the Vedas, and we know that on that platform, we can immediately be connected. So this is such a wonderful thing what Srila Prabhupada gave us here. Today, especially, I mean, the days in the material world are always agitated days. This is the place of agitation. But we see over and over again so much agitation coming, and it's coming from the same source, from the bodily consciousness. Yeah, that I think my body is better as your body, my body is different, I want this, and whatever belongs to this body, this is mine, this is not yours. As soon this mentality comes, of course, there will be conflict, you know. And people try to artificially eliminate these conflicts by all kinds of material arrangements. It will never be possible. So we are the living proof of that what Srila Prabhupada gave us. So preservation of the Vedas, the Vedic knowledge, is definitely Krishna's priority. All misery and all pain comes from ignorance. We don't know. You know, we don't know who we are. That's a real big mistake. You know, yeah. If I don't know who I am, well, everything else is wrong. And we don't know where we come from. And we have no idea where we go to. When these things are not clarified and not understood, then only confusion and chaos ensues. Must be there. So Srila Prabhupada clearly defined to us who we are, where we came from, and what should be our ultimate destination. On that platform, when we strive in the same direction, we are immediately can be united. So the Veda, I don't know anything about African languages, but in a Western line, the word Veda appears very often in different languages. You know, yeah. I'm right now sitting in Sweden. If somebody speaks about knowledge, he says we have to veta. Veta means actually in Swedish, yeah, I know, veta. Yeah, it means knowledge. In Czech, where I'm born in Czech Republic, it's called Vieda. Yeah, it's a very similar sound. Yeah. Because Sanskrit is the original language, so it's still, these words remain being preserved in various languages, in various dialects and various sounding, but it's very similar. So Krishna appears in various incarnations, and when he appears, he does it in style. You know, Krishna has not one incarnation, he has so many. And like that alone, to inform some religious persons that God can appear as a fish must be quite shocking to quite few, you know. Yeah. If I would go to some Christian person and say God can also appear as a fish, he would think this is ridiculous. Yeah. But why not? He is God. But when Krishna appears as Matsya Avatar, well, that's a different fish. Big golden fish with a horn, who pulls around the boat in an ocean of devastation. By the way, the ocean of devastation is also mentioned. There are even materialistic, or there are even scientists who researched, make comparative studies between even different religious scriptures, and they always find there's flooding going on. Yeah, in every scripture you have mentioning that once upon a time there was a big flooding going on. They find it very exciting, you know. But we here in Bhagavatam, we have the original flooding, and that's half of the universe gets flooded. And the flood is so ferocious that even Lord Brahma becomes worried. It's so amazing. It's so gigantic. We know that the process of universal devastation that first comes from Anantashesh fires coming from his mouth, igniting the whole universe after at least 100 years of a totally everything drying out. Yeah. When everything is dried out, then comes fire. And after fire comes the flood. And that's at the very end of the day of Brahma. So we have no ability to watch such a spectacular happenings, but Brahma can. He sees it, and even he gets worried. And because he is the embodiment of Krishna's master plan, of the knowledge of the Vedas, so he is worried about the preservation of the Vedas too. And out of that fear, out of his mouth, come the Vedas, and they will be saved and preserved, the Vedic knowledge, by Matsya Avatar. Now, we know that before the appearance of Srila Prabhupada, as we mentioned before, neither in Africa, neither in Europe, some knowledge about the Vedas prevailed. There was some idea, English and even Germans, they knew. We know that in the history of mankind that even Mr. Hitler was and his company, they were quite aware of the Vedas. But of course, having no spiritual guidance, they interpret it in their own way and with their own motivation. Vedas can be only understood by pure motivation. Only a person who is free of hypocrisy and duplicitous type of thinking, such a person can actually be granted access to the Vedas again through an authorized spiritual master. Yeah, that's described also in Srimad Bhagavatam, that without the presence of an authorized spiritual master, the Vedas cannot be understood. Because again, we may interpret them in our own limited way, and Vedas cannot be understood by the power of our own mind, of our own false ego, our own so-called intelligence. That's not possible. So therefore, our definition of the Vedas is the definition of whatever we heard from Srila Prabhupada. We don't know anything else. When we experience, it's even dangerous to go out and investigate into the Vedas without Srila Prabhupada's reference, without his permission. This is, Prabhupada was even, we can find it in his correspondence, he discouraged this kind of studies. He said this is only for very specific, again, authorized devotees who may even take Vaishnava literature and quote or translate even due to his authorization. We don't have any other reference. And we saw it, unfortunately, in the past, the devotees, even nice devotees who actually out of, you could call it Brahminical curiosity, they contact scriptures without Srila Prabhupada's reference. They end up being confused, and they end up confusing others. Because Veda means it's a very vast knowledge. It includes everything. But what is the priority? We can even quote Krishna, who at the Bhagavad Gita says at the end to Arjuna, don't be lost don't be confused by the flowery language of the Vedas. So Krishna, the origin of all the Vedas, is discouraging Arjuna to get on his own lost in the details Vedas describe and stay with the essence. And this is what we got from Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada expertly took the essence of the Veda, and according to time, place, and circumstances, he presented it to us in such a way that even such entirely unqualified people could actually follow and practice the knowledge of the Vedas. We know that in the Vedas, it's established there is jnana, theoretical knowledge, and then is vijnana, realized knowledge. And Prabhupada gave us a wonderful way how to come quickly to the platform of realized knowledge. Yeah. I remember, I can quote one of his personal servants who at the end was my GBC for many years in North Europe, he told us how Prabhupada on a certain point, seeing him being so eagerly studying and reading and all this, so Prabhupada said, so much reading, so much reading, so much studying. When will you finally do something? And this is what is distinguishing Prabhupada also from many others. And he also got criticized for that sometimes, that he is doing so many things. So without Prabhupada doing so many things, we wouldn't sit here. Prabhupada would sit in Vrindavan, he would study, he would be very much appreciating for his erudition and for his advanced Krishna consciousness, but he would never come to Africa. He would never come to these countries. So, and what did he do when he came to Africa? He searched immediately contacts of people who can do something. Yeah, not just sitting somewhere and chanting. That's good. That's good. But what is the result of that? I have to mention it. Maybe some may not be very happy hearing me saying that. But do we really understand what we are chanting? The Hare Krishna mantra, what is it? It's a prayer. And what do we pray for? Krishna, please remove the material energy so I can serve you more efficiently and purely. So here we come to the point Prabhupada mentioned. Chanting, chanting, chanting is good. But what is the result? And Prabhupada pointed out, more service. Action. Action. Whoever chants sincerely, yeah, he will immediately feel the urge, I have to do something. I have to actually do something practical for Krishna. What is practical? Oh, Prabhupada gave a very practical form. You go out on a street and chant publicly. That's called preaching. Then, as you are chanting, you can also, and that was actually one of the most heartfelt desire of Prabhupada. You find it here embodied. Publish, print, and distribute my books. Over and over, Prabhupada stressed this point. In the beginning, nobody even knew what he's talking about. But we know how book distribution started in ISKCON. Even Srila Prabhupada actually didn't organize the way how the books will be distributed. He never organized Sankirtan parties going out and distributing these books and all this. Devotees did it quite innocently and naturally because the books were already printed, they were there. So what shall we do with them? So they tried, we know how it started, they tried just give on one gas station, instead of paying petrol, they gave the man a book. They became so ecstatic instantly that they wanted to distribute even one book more. And one book more. And the excess is spread around the temples. I was partially witnessing it still when I was joining 72. By that time, book distribution in ISKCON was already going full blast. And it was, you could call it, Prabhupada call it epidemic. It was infectious. The bliss and the ecstasy coming from this service was so afflicting so many that when I joined this movement, I had no other choice as to go out and distribute books too. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to even to join because everybody was doing that. That was the pioneer days of Krishna consciousness. I joined in Germany. I'm not a German, but I joined there. So all devotees were going out distributing books. And it was the last activity and the last, we could say, idea I had, what I will do even in Krishna consciousness. I couldn't imagine myself going out, contacting people, selling them books. This was something so far away from me. Before I joined this movement, I was a very silent, shy boy sitting at home. And suddenly I was on a street the whole day running around and trying to push books into people's hands, which they were not very fond to take. So that was quite a change. But I didn't want to go back to that loneliness and to that isolation I lived in. So I tried, and soon I discovered This is something which makes one truly ecstatic. So that was going on for, let's say, 15 years at least, running around very intensely, practically day and night we were out there. So this is just one thing to mention. Now there are different devotion activities, and Prabhupada wrote me a letter where he writes, we should not discriminate. Devotional service is absolute by nature. That means any kind of devotional service is transcendental. But even on the absolute platform, there are varieties. Yeah. And Prabhupada's, the value of the, you could call in context with this today's shlokas, what we just read, the way to preserve the Vedic knowledge, Srila Prabhupada's way was to print as many books as possible and to distribute as many books as possible. Especially in Kali Yuga, this is very relevant because people are called mandan. They are very slow and very forgetful. We know it from our own experience. How many times I was reading this Bhagavatam in last 50 years? Quite few times. And still when I open Bhagavatam, I think, wow, it's like a new book to me. Yeah? Because we so easily forget. And therefore, books are so important to remember us again. And that the reason Prabhupada started this society so we can come together and have association. Yeah, actually congregate together. Because as soon as we see the other devotee, we remember Krishna immediately. So these practical engagement in devotional service and association with devotees is most important. So anybody who chants sincerely Hare Krishna mantra will feel the impulse actually to be practically engaged in spreading Krishna consciousness and also to come together and congregate with other devotees, and he will be seeking inspiration from others. That's actually the essence of this movement. Otherwise, we are not the International Society for Economic Development, Consciousness. We are not the International Society for Becoming Famous, Consciousness. I mean, these things you can do elsewhere. There are actually places in the material world where you can very quickly probably become rich or famous. I mean, you just have to join the taste of the public. We are not here actually for the taste of the public. We are here for Krishna's pleasure. And to stay inspired and be inspired, association of devotees is so important. So daily we hear about Krishna, always amazing news. Krishna appearing as a fish, Krishna appearing as a boar, as a pig, Krishna appearing as a half man, half lion, Krishna appearing in so many forms. Such a variety of information about God's nature you will hardly find anywhere. Actually, there is no place you can find the features of God are mentioned in other, you could say, religions, and also they are there, but in a very limited way. So such a vast variety of information about God, about us being part of God, about God's creation in greatest detail. It's Krishna consciousness is not only amazing in a visual form. It's not amazing in the practical experience form, yeah, like when we taste prasadam and when we this, but it's also intellectually very satisfying. I can quote one intelligent man who lived 50 years before Srila Prabhupada's appearance, a very intelligent man actually, but who said, I don't believe a God who cannot answer my questions. Now that sounds quite challenging, but he was not an atheist, actually. He was just dissatisfied with the way how primitive, in what kind of primitive way God is presented. So being an intellectual person, he wanted to get more, he had more questions, but nobody could answer them. So he became kind of frustrated. So So I was thinking, when I was hearing this, I was thinking, oh, what a pity he didn't meet Srila Prabhupada. Because Srila Prabhupada, meeting him was so exciting. It was so inspiring, because you realize through his personality the amazing variety you can get in Krishna consciousness. As a matter of fact, without Krishna consciousness, life is pretty boring, you know that. Eating, sleeping, mating, and defending, it becomes quite boring, you know. So what? You are eating again. So what? You are sleeping again. You never see people going to sleep and waking up being enthusiastic. Really not much. It's the same boring sleeping. And it's the same eating. People get always very excited. Now we will eat something new. Yeah, very soon the senses get dull. And they go, no, this doesn't taste very good anymore. It's amazing, actually. Just an example of eating. When you eat something the same thing you like so much, when you eat it all the time, after a while you cannot eat it anymore. This is too much. It becomes distasteful. The whole material sanscarification works like this. Even sex life, which Prabhupada said, yes, is undoubtedly the greatest pleasure in this world, even that becomes so boring, and it becomes so tasteless. Everything in the material world becomes like this. But if you want to know, even while living in a material world, how exciting life can be, then we can experience the variety we get through Krishna consciousness, through the eyes of Srila Prabhupada, through his words, through his preaching, and the endless flow of knowledge and realization coming from the Vedas. So that's something I could say along the Matsya appearance of Krishna in the form of a fish. But I don't know how much time we have. If there is some scope for questions or answers. So I know internet is very limited for me. This Zoom broadcasts, I always find myself being limited to the little shape of the picture in the corner of the telephone. Usually I am a quite interactive person, and I like the presence of the audience. You know, here I hardly see anybody. So for me, the audience is always nourishing, because I always try to go along the audience. I am not the person who will speak a very intricate ways from the Vedas, give you so much information that you finally don't know what to do with it. Or you will kind of fall asleep and just go, okay, this was a really nice lecture. Unfortunately, I couldn't understand one word. This is not me, you know. I was trained in Krishna consciousness that we talk about something, our understanding and practice of Krishna consciousness to be down to the floor. We have to speak about things which are needed to be heard, and we have to do what is needed to be done. This was the training I got. So, you know, I am not that kind of academic person at all, you know. If you would, that's the reason I end up also being temple president for 25 years or 30 years almost, because that's a very down to the floor business. Every day you are dealing with very, very three-dimensional reality, and I like that. But it was, you know, it was bordering on craziness. Every temple president, whenever I see today a temple president, I pay my obeisances immediately. You know, I immediately pay my dandavats. Whoever survived this kind of service, being a temple president, he can survive anything. You know, once you have that training, then you can actually survive anything, because it's you meet any kind of adversities there, any kind of problems in that field of practical management. Srila Prabhupada was doing the same. He said, when you preach, management will follow you like a shadow, automatically. Especially when you preach successfully. Well, people will join, they have to be accommodated, they have to be facilitated, and immediately you will have to deal with something very practical. And it's going to be eating, sleeping, mating, and defending again, but in another form. I would say, in a productive form. Yeah. Because what manager does, he's basically also just dealing with eating and sleeping and for others like that. Fortunately, we have the sex life business very limited. That's actually not part of our temple president business, really. So that's already an incredible relief. I don't have to manage that, But eating and sleeping is there. And defending, protection, of course, this is there too. That you have to do the whole time. And you have to have a nature for that. Fortunately, my nature is like that. I was equipped like that. I love it when things get chaotic, when things go crazy, I become very enlivened, because I have something to do, yeah. I am not the Bhajanandi type sitting somewhere in a forest and trying to enjoy the holy name and going inside. For me, inside, outside, well, I understood from Prabhupada, it's the same. In Krishna consciousness, there is no inside and outside. It's all about Krishna. Outside, inside, it doesn't matter. And we have to do the needful. So that's the spirit which we learned from Srila Prabhupada, and he himself showed us that he was really doing the needful. So I don't know if there are some questions or some points I should maybe mention or focus on. Is there such a scope for that?
Thank you very much, Manid.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you very much, Manidhara Prabhu. Actually, the class hour is like a temple setting where you have about 1 hour for speaking. And then after that, we have between 30 minutes to 1 hour for question and answer section.
Oh, so much time.
Yeah. So we.
I am used, when I visit the temples, the temple presidents appearing in a door going like this, it's enough now, Well, especially when about certain issues, I can talk for a long time. There's so much from Prabhupada we got to talk about. Exactly. It's practically endless. Now, if you ask me to elaborate more on Krishna's incarnation, well, there are devotees who are far more qualified to go in more details. They will go into the Puranas and they will pull out on new information I never heard before and you never heard before. Well, I'm not one of them. I'm more like, okay, that's nice. Krishna is appearing in a fish incarnation to save the Vedas. Okay, so how we are going to save the Vedas? Okay, we have to save the Vedas. We have to follow in Krishna's footsteps and in Srila Prabhupada's footsteps. Now, how can we save the Vedas in Africa, like example? That would be an interesting question for me. Exactly. Because the Vedas are for everybody. They are not nation limited to a certain nation, location, or whatever. The Vedas are actually a universal scripture, universal thing. So from Vedic point of view, Africa is just a little place somewhere in a corner of the universe, So, but we got the mission of Srila Prabhupada to preserve the Vedas. So how can we do that?
Very beautiful question. I think I'll leave that to the audience. So dear devotees, thank you very much for being part of this class. Thank you very much, Manidhara Prabhu, for the beautiful class you've given. Or comments, please, the floor is open for Q&A. And just indicate by raising your hand, using the emoji, or by physically raising your hand, we'll call you to ask your question. So while we're waiting for devotees to ask questions, I think I have one question, Prabhu.
Yeah.
The class in a very beautiful way, going into the Lord's purpose for incarnation, and particularly to save the Vedas. But along the line, you were speaking about how Srila Prabhupada started most of the preaching activities that we are engaging in now. So my question is that, and you ended beautifully on the same, almost at the same point, asking about how do we save Vedas in Africa. It's an interesting question. I think I will have to throw that question to the community of devotees, because it's an interesting topic, how we save the Vedas in Africa. But my question specifically is, in the beginning days, you mentioned in the class that Prabhupada never dictated to devotees, this is what you should do, this is what you should do. Prabhupada allowed the devotees to come out with their, and then Prabhupada approve of it and they explain. But quite differently from that, now the scenario is different. We see where that we have like kind of a regulated activities in the temple. Okay, you have to do Sankirtan, you have to do deity worship, you have to do that. So what would be your advice for a devotee who finds himself or herself, an aspiring devotee who has an inclination for preaching in a particular way, but who is boxed in a particular temple where the routine will be, you have to do this, you have to do that, particularly specific. This is the mood of this temple president, so you have to follow that forcibly. Maybe that the mood of the temple president is that is a Sankirtan devotee, so he says all the devotees in my temple must go on Sankirtan. Or you come to another temple, the temple devotee is an Harinam personality as a temple president, and he said all the temple devotees must practice Harinam. So what will you advise, Prabhuji?
It is quite natural that even in Krishna consciousness, we find that the birds of the same feather flock together. There is variety. And Srila Prabhupada already, in the early days, already facilitated variety, but he made it also very clear. If you want to become a disciple, that word disciple is connected to the word discipline. And without discipline, there is no disciple. Okay? This is not a freelance, if you feel like, then do it movement. It's not possible. That you can do, yeah, sure, but not in an organized fashion Prabhupada established. As soon as you speak about organized fashion, well, there will be some discipline. And that discipline, Prabhupada said, and he did it in a wonderful way, has to be voluntarily understood. Therefore, Prabhupada mentioned also this movement has one problem. It's only for intelligent people. Intelligent person will understand that I have to be disciplined. Intelligent person will understand that if I do always what I like, well, it may turn out to be very counterproductive. I'm coming from the, times of the hippie movement, right? And it was based on these principles. There was no principles. First of all, hippie, no principles. And you do what you like, you do what you feel. Yeah. That was the idea. And then you are free. Yeah. I personally realized I was never really a bona fide hippie because I was not chasing girls and I didn't have a long hair, so that already disqualified me. And I was not taking drugs. So then I was completely out of it already. If you didn't take any drugs, then you were nobody. So and the hippie movement got very quickly destroyed. Even in Prabhupada's presence was already falling completely apart. Why? Well, when you have this kind of freedom of free drugs, free sex, and free speculation, well, this is self-destructive cocktail, which very quickly will be terminated. So it fell apart very quickly. So that understanding, unfortunately, this has to be there for anybody who sincerely wants to join the Hare Krishna movement. There is a discipline. But again, Prabhupada pointed out, it's a voluntary movement. We have no force. In a Kami society, it's simple. Either you bribe people by money, you control them by money, and if you don't have any money, well, then you have your police, and you have your army, and you have all this. There's only two things. And on top of that, you tell them you are free. You are free, but if you don't get the money, And if you don't work for my money, then we will come down on you with some more practical means. And in essence, it works always like that until today. There is no freedom. So in Krishna consciousness, it's very difficult. This is really voluntary. You can come and go anytime you want. And it was proven in the history of ISKCON, people come and people go all the time. I don't like it, I don't want to do it anymore, then don't do it. But Krishna has his opinion about this. So Prabhupada said very clearly, if you don't serve Krishna, you will serve Maya. You will have to serve anyway. You will be a servant. And you will be disciplined one way or another. By birth, old age, death, and disease. And you will be disciplined by material nature has so many ways to, in an uncompromising way, to discipline you. So intelligent person, that's what Prabhupada said, this is for intelligent people, goes, I would rather like to be disciplined by Krishna as by Maya directly. Maya is also Krishna's energy, but not very pleasant. Why not just be controlled by Krishna? It's quite amazing. I could go now in great detail to describe what happens when a devotee leaves Krishna consciousness, searching his freedom, you know. I never saw anybody getting some freedom. There will be always some boss. There will be always somebody to tell you what to do. There will be always somebody restricting you. And the restriction we get in Krishna consciousness is very, very mild. Prabhupada, this is amazing. Until today, I mean, I'm kind of in an age, people don't argue with me anymore. I regret that. You know, I would like to have some good fight, some good argument. They always ask me, like, how long are you doing this? And I said, well, I don't know, 50 years, something like that. And then they don't ask anything anymore, you know. And I go like, come on, hey, let's have some argument, you know, let's some challenge. I don't get it because they think, better you don't argue with that man, you know, you may come out like an idiot, you know, and they will. I can really expose, I don't do that out of fun, but it happens quite naturally. I can expose any arguing kami as being a total idiot in a few minutes. And I'm not really trained. I never desired this to do that, but it happens completely naturally. When you confront people with Krishna consciousness, they end up looking like idiots, even from a logical point of view. It's not a question of belief or religion or whatever. You know, it's just logically spoken. They really end up like idiots. And they don't like this kind of things. So they rather go out of your way. And they go, okay, this is your belief. Bye. And they don't want to have any argument. You know, it's boring. It's really boring sometimes. I'm a person who doesn't mind to have a good conflict when it's productive. Just conflict in itself is not so it's boring, but you know, but it's a productive conflict, and maybe somebody can tell me something which new, which I may really start to think about, something interesting. But I don't meet any people like this. It's all boring, you know. It's all just it's the same thing, you know. I don't believe it. Was it, well, who cares if you believe or not? Can we talk something about rational thing? You know, we are speaking about faith, but we don't talk about faith. And they think this is unbelievable. They meet a man who is obviously, you know, functioning on a level of faith and a firm belief, but not that kind of belief what they expect, fanatical blind belief, you know. And I tell people, please tell me something which can shake my faith in Krishna consciousness. I mean, just tell me something interesting, you know, because if I would find something better as Krishna consciousness, if I would find something better as that, I will stop chanting immediately. But I didn't find it yet. That's the problem. Give me something which is better as Krishna consciousness, please. And they are finished. They cannot do that. Nobody comes up with anything. So, you know, same thing with regulative principles. That's a really flip out. What? No sex? You know, illicit sex? No meat eating, no intoxication, no gambling. I'm a dead man. This is my life, you know. Yeah. Who forbade you to do this? That's always the same thing. And I say, nobody. No. I can go out tonight and have a really good time. I am physically quite functionable being. I can break all the 4 regulated principles just tonight. Now, will I do that? No. For a simple reason, because we didn't got just 4 types of enjoyment. We got 4 types of problems. And that they can immediately understand. Did you ever saw a drunk person who doesn't have a problem? That's one big problem, and you know it. Did you ever saw an intoxicated person with no problem? Yeah, of course, it's one big problem, and you know that. Did you ever saw a lusty guy running around trying to have as much sex as possible? That's a huge problem. From AIDS up to paying for unwanted children, you can get screwed up for the rest of your life. For what? For a few minutes sex life? If I would tell you, hey, 3 minutes you can enjoy like anything, and for 30 years you will suffer like a dog, not a good deal. I mean, let's think about this. It's ridiculous. Meat eating? Come on. I give you a knife or a gun or whatever. Go out and hunt some animal down, kill it, and eat it. And I'll say, no, I will never do that. Yeah, but you are eating it every day. Somebody else did it for you. So, does it make sense to you? And come on, this little animal you eat, this is enough to satisfy your hunger? What is it? I can eat 5 potatoes, I get more meal, bigger meal as you. It doesn't make sense from any point of view. There's no logic in it. So when you talk like this and people start to, either they laugh when they are more intelligent, or they try to really get out of there because it's so unpleasant to hear such things for them. So this is practical. So in Krishna consciousness, it's a voluntary movement, but we both have to understand, all of us, that we joined here to satisfy Krishna and Srila Prabhupada in a coordinated attempt which immediately commands discipline. I mean, I could say something which may sound to some controversial, but it's practical. You know how many authorities I had in Krishna consciousness I followed? Quite few. And quite few of them, they are not even around anymore. And I wonder sometimes, why am I still sitting here and they are gone? Well, some of them already left the body, So that will happen to me too. But I wonder sometimes, because I followed the principle. There's a principle. We are all part of a big scheme of Krishna, big plan. And either you are part of the plan in various capacity, in various positions, or you are not. That's the only choice we have. And some of us may turn out to be the managers or the leaders. Well, the leader is also a servant. I remember once MACBSP wrote a manual for managers. And I was just passing by his room and he called me in and he said, hey, I'm just putting up some points together. What is actually a manager? And immediately from top of my head, I was by that time already temple president. I said, well, the manager is a servant. And he said, that's the point number 1. We are all servants. Some are the leading servants, some are the following servants. But we are all servants ultimately. When this is understood, then we become also tolerant. Some leaders, they may not be exactly to our taste, okay? Yeah. Sometimes they are maybe not mature enough. Sometimes they have a certain nature. You mentioned it, I think, before, that there are certain even moods and certain natures. So birds of the same feather, they flock together. Why not? Even in Krishna consciousness, we can have that. But somehow, when it comes to Haranam, together chanting, when it comes together serving Prabhupada's mission, these differences of natures, they should be tolerated. If I would describe you in detail with what kind of people I drove on Sankirtan in a car distributing Prabhupada's books, well, for sure, such a people I would never meet in my life, especially in the early days, you know. In the early days, there was not much of a Bhakta program or something like this. The Bhakta program was you put the guy in a car, give him books, and either he will survive on the street or not. That was the Bhakta program. You know, that was my Bhakta program. They put me on the street, they gave me the books, and they say bye-bye. I was going, you know, what am I supposed to do? And they said, Krishna will help you. Bye-bye. You know, and then they left. And I knew only one thing. I will not go back anymore. I really was tired of my existence. I said, I will not go back to the Seneca. So I will rather die here. I don't care, but let's see what happens. And that's how my book distribution started, you know. I just approached the person with shaking with the book. And, you know, and some people took something, you know, yeah, probably out of compassion because I looked so helpless, you know. So, yeah. Then I realized more and more, yeah, actually I start to like this. This is actually very nice. And devotees like me, then, you know, I remember the first day I came from Sankirtan, the temple president came down the stairs and he looked and he said, how was the new one? And they said, wow, you know, he did in one day, he distributed 100 magazines. That was actually, I did that in the first day. You know, the magazines were just like, was cheap, you know, it was just passing out the magazines. He got a big smile on his face. He looked in my eyes and he said, hey, he is a Sankirtan devotee. And I felt accepted, you know. I felt, oh, now I can be also a devotee. They accept me here. So I actually went on Sankirtan, not because of love of Godhead, but because of social reasons. I want to be actually accepted amongst devotees, to be a devotee. So, you know, so that's how I started. So, of course, the motivations may be modified on the way, but still, it's the same thing. So, if you want to be devotee, well, everything has a price. We have to sacrifice our, you could say, so-called independence. But it's easy when you are a little bit, Krishna can give you intelligence to understand that you will have no independence anyway. When you leave Krishna consciousness, oh, your independence you will not be independent anyway. You will be even more dependent. You know, yeah? How many people I saw walking out of the door going, I have enough of this. Somebody telling me always what to do here. I have enough of this. I'm a free man. I have to express my individual freedom. Then they walk out, you know, and you find them in the most humiliating situations, you know, being just slaving for, I don't want to give you a whole list, you know, how enslaved you can be by material energy. But it's really humiliating. You know, the world out there is not very accommodating. Either you work and you become useful for the profit or you get out of there. That's it. That's, you know, they will not ask you, how do you feel about this? No, you have to perform. You have to create some result. If you don't, out. You are finished. That's simple. That's how material world works. In Krishna consciousness, we have such a merciful type of management, you know. Like you go on Sankirtan, I give an example. And you distribute maybe 5 books or maybe 50. It doesn't matter. You will get your prasadam anyway. You know, in a kami world, oh, no. There's a quota, you know. You have to perform in a certain way. Otherwise, you don't get your salary. But in a Krishna consciousness, it's, well, anyway, you know, or you just chant Hare Krishna. This is not a very complicated thing to do. And immediately you will be accepted. I mean, we have such a open social field. Some people may even misuse it, and they do. That's also a painful management, you know, that you have to sort out. You say, oh, no. Temple is not for lazies and crazies, Prabhupada said. That's quote from Prabhupada. So sorry, these two categories we cannot accommodate. There's to be, but foolish, incompetent, helpless, yeah, that's we are dealing with all the time. That's not that we have to do. You know, yeah. Prabhupada called sometimes some devotees the Dandavat class because he forgets everything. He's very, very limited, but he never forgets to make the Dandavat when the Guru comes, you know. So that's Prabhupada said that's already a qualification we have to accommodate, you know. He always bows down when the Guru comes. You know, that's something. I mean, how more basic and how more merciful you can get. So Prabhupada gave such a vast range of facilities of people being accommodated and engaged. But there has to be discipline, some sort of discipline. And there has to be acceptance of authority. Otherwise, it will not work. It will, we will become, then it's just another version of this hippie movement. Yeah, hippie. Like I mentioned before what the hippie was. So we will be chanting hippies. It doesn't matter, but we will be hippies still. For those who approach Krishna consciousness, disciple means discipline. Otherwise, there is no disciple.
Thank you so much, Shakuji. Beautifully answered my question. I really appreciate it. And in the course of your answer, you've actually raised so many questions in my mind. But there is something I wanted to ask related to the verse before. There's no one asking a question, so I can ask the second question. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Jammakama chamedi vyamivam yoveti tatota deapuna jaman mameti sojuna. That by understanding his appearance and activities, and one will come back to him and never come back to this material world. But in the course of your lecture, you were explaining some points that how do one understand this Krishna? Now, for an example, you explained that you go out there and you tell someone that God is appeared in a fish form. Who can understand this kind of concept? So, but then devotee amazingly are happy. They fall into bliss when they hear this. So, in the preaching mode, let me act like you said something beautifully that one who is not a devotee is actually foolish because they don't have any argument. But if someone says, okay, how can God become a fish? How do you respond to this? On the preaching, on the Sankirtan, or maybe?
Well, this is basic thing. How can we understand? My answer would be, with what understand? What kind of equipment we got? I mean, if you want to get some knowledge, you need some equipment for that.
Exactly.
So commies have their microscope or telescope or whatever. We have our senses. They are already quite limited. And then if you want to find out how limited they are, well, you have just to grow old. Then they will reveal. You know, maybe you notice when you speak, I go with the ear like that. Why? Well, I hear less as I was hearing 50 years ago. Yeah, I hear still reasonably, but not as good as I used to hear. Seeing, same thing. This is so funny, you know. People get glasses on and they go, show me God, you know. With what? With what do you want to see God? With your glasses? Are you joking? You know, but they don't understand that the eyes are also glasses. It's also an instrument. And we know that there are different glasses, you know, and if I get the wrong glasses, well, I will see something else. Yeah. Yeah. Like I have two kinds of glasses for looking ahead and reading. So when I switch the glasses, it becomes completely counterproductive because I don't see anything ahead, but I see only things down here. So I have to always make sure I have the right glasses, right? That's how limited I am. So anybody working like this, challenging, I want to see God, or I want to understand why God is fish. With what? With your eyes? Are you joking? With your ears? What? And then gets worse. With what? With your brain? Prabhupada was very challenging. He said, I don't see any brain. Sorry. Like when Prabhupada was challenged, there was those days that Hare Krishna movement is brainwashing people, okay? His answer was so hilarious. He said, brainwashing what? They have no brain. There is nothing to wash. Prabhupada said, first we give brain, then we wash. Prabhupada was hilarious. Because brain is just, Prabhupada said, there's no brain, simply cow dung. You know, there's just something sitting there, which looks like a brain, but because like brain is connected to intelligence, you know, and intelligence means you discriminate. You can discriminate between good and bad, what is to be done, what is not to be done. You know, that's what actually we are training in Krishna consciousness. Therefore, it's all one and the same, you know, doctrine. It advocates brainlessness. That means actually brainless person. For him, it's all one and the same, you know. Like you have people who really are mentally retarded, so they will say, oh, it's very nice. And you give them something horrible, they go, it's also nice. It's very nice. So brain means actually discrimination, intelligence, all these. So, so far I'm concerned, I always attacked the very same equipment people operate with. And when you meet more intelligent person, he will agree. Do you know everything? And then if you know everything, why are you asking me? You know, why are you asking me? Because, you know, but the problem is that the more stupid you are, the more proud you are. False ego. It's so damaging. It blocks any kind of exchange. False ego. You cannot talk to a proud person. Even he is brainless. He has no brain, but he's proud. That's like the only strong thing he has. The brain is weak. The senses are weak, you know, but the false ego is very strong. You can see it actually. It's interesting to see children growing up. The first thing which grows up actually is the false ego. Even before they can walk, they think, I will walk now, you know, I can do that, you know. And it's a child, you know, so we are laughing, yes, yes. I remember my daughter when she was growing up, in a very early stage, she was teaching me things, you know. She was showing me, no, that's how you do it now, you know. And it was cute to see that, you know. Yeah, how a small child is teaching me how to walk and teaching me how to behave and whatever, you know. But from Krishna's point of view, we are all like that. And that has to be understood. I mean, just imagine how Krishna must see us, you know. I cannot imagine. I even know only one thing. He is very, very merciful. I mean, we think sometimes we are so, you know, just not even Krishna, but just the demigods, how they must perceive us. We think we are so intelligent, we are so poetic, we are this from demigod point of view, we are just all fools and idiots. So this is so amazing. When you met Srila Prabhupada, you realize that was actually so amazing. I experienced it myself. In the presence of Srila Prabhupada, you immediately realized that you are such an idiot. I mean, practically hopeless. You know, you really got desperate. just Prabhupada's presence exposed your stupidity in such a, such an amazing way. And he didn't even say anything. Just by seeing him and being around him, you really felt like a total idiot, you know. But you know, Prabhupada, he was so amazing. He looked at you always in such an encouraging way. He said, yeah, maybe an idiot, but you are the right man for Krishna. You can be Krishna conscious. So everybody became so enthusiastic. I saw even very, quite insane people in Prabhupada's presence, how they got so encouraged and how they become even very productive. I could give you stories and examples from the early days on Sankirtan, what kind of people I had in a car. I mean, sometimes they told me there is a new boy, he joined the Hare Krishna movement. Take him in a Sankirtan van and don't bring him back. You know. Well, I was thinking before I leave him somewhere on the corner, on the street, why not try, maybe he can distribute some book. And I could tell you stories, I mean, amazing thing I saw. How a person who cannot even speak out his own name became quite a reasonable book distributor. I mean, I saw such amazing things happening. It gives you a great faith into the process of Krishna consciousness. You know, we had names for them. Bhakta Frankenstein and Bhakta this, and we had names for this kind of people, you know, heavily drugged, damaged people. And they became a reasonable Sankirtan devotees. You know, yeah. I remember this one, he couldn't even chant the holy name. He was chanting Hare, Hare, Hare. And, you know, and once again, the temple president came and he said, hey, take him on Sankirtan, don't bring him back. So, so I had him in a car sitting, you know, Hare, Hare, you know, and after 1 week, he chanted the whole Maha Mantra by distributing some books. And he became one of the pujaris in Germany in a temple.
Wow.
So, you know, this is just amazing. And it's really like, by the mercy of the spiritual master, a blind man can see stars in the sky. A lame man can dance. And a man who never spoke one word can recite poetry. This is Shastric statement. And it is, I saw it in action. When you come in touch with Srila Prabhupada, these things start to happen. So this is amazing. So it's a voluntary movement. We cannot lock up anybody in Krishna consciousness. And it's sad sometimes to see how people are so enthusiastically missing the chance of their life. It's very sad to see that. But what can we do? We can only pray and maybe improve our own quality of Krishna consciousness so people may get more attracted. We can work on ourselves. And this is the wonderful thing: when you preach, you will be exposed. And you will be, you know, you have to, whatever little you have still there, false ego, pride, you know, envy, this will be immediately exposed when you preach. Because you meet lusty people, envious people, they are much better as you, you know. You cannot compete with the lust and envy of a full-scale materialist. They are champions. So whatever we still have conditioning of that sort, it will be exposed, and we have to get rid of it. This is the beautiful thing about preaching. Management is very good also. It's very, very humiliating, you could say. Very good, very good. You have to take it, and people will come, they will oppose, they will criticize, they will insult you even, and you have to take it because you are just doing your service. You have to be very clear about this, that this is just my service, I'm doing it. Kali Yuga is a horrible time, you know. There are so many critics, but there are not many doing people, you know. Most people just wait until you do something and then they criticize. Same thing happened to Prabhupada. Prabhupada was not even an exception. He got criticized, even by his own godbrothers, but he got criticized. But he said, well, at least I'm doing something I can be criticized for. I'm criticized by people who don't do anything. Of course, you cannot criticize them because they don't do anything. The material world is such that as soon as you do something, well, somebody will come and disagree. That's part of life. You have to live with that. And it takes its toll. I mean, therefore, that's the reason why I'm so respectful to temple presidents, because I met quite few who were just reaching the end of the line. They couldn't take it anymore. We call it the Arjuna syndrome. I will not fight. I go in a forest. Now it's enough of this. No more Kurukshetra here. Bye-bye. It's natural. Prabhupada comments in Bhagavad Gita. This is actually natural for a devotee to feel so unenthusiastic, to join something which is seemingly so mundane. It's only with Krishna's encouragement Arjuna finally, picked up the bow and started to fight, because he got another vision. But from his point of view, this was not very inspiring. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Prabhuji.
So any manager has a time, has a crisis. Any manager comes to a point, he goes, you know what? Do it yourself. Bye-bye. I will chant Hare Krishna now. I want to have my spiritual life. But I don't have to go through this every day. No, we have to. You know what Prabhupada said to one manager? He said, management is like going through iron, going through fire. When it comes out on the other side, it becomes like steel. Yeah. Prabhupada knew. When they asked him, Prabhupada, how was your life before you came to the West? In Vrindavan. Prabhupada said, it was simple. Vrindavan is such a beautiful place. I was chanting, making my bhajan here. And then he closed the eyes and he smiled and he said, and there was no management. But Prabhupada took it. Prabhupada took the challenge and we have to take it too.
Thank you very much, Prabhuji.
You get lots of mercy for that. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji, for this enthusiastic. Well, that leads me to another question. I have in the course of you answering my question, you raised so many other questions. And you've said so many wonderful things that I can relate to. As you answer the question, the position of a guru in the life of a disciple, that is quite interesting. My Guru Maharaj also used to say, I'm a disciple of Bhakti Tirtha Swami Maharaj, and he used to say that the guru is like a mirror, and the moment you come before the guru, you are exposed. So whatever nonsense that you have inside of you comes out. So that is how a guru is. So, and I'm happy that I'm hearing that also from you. But let me ask something a little bit more personal, Prabhu. I've seen this syndrome, this scenario in all of those disciples of Srila Prabhupada. We just recently celebrated the disappearance of Srila Prabhupada almost 50 years ago, and then we're looking at his disciples. The level of enthusiasm that is carried by the disciples of Srila Prabhupada is amazing. You hardly can understand it. Prabhu, can you share with us, what is that secret that keeps you going enthusiastically like this, so fired up as if you just joined Krishna consciousness yesterday? Because sometimes when someone takes to some process, you say ecstatic enthusiasm is there, but to continue for decades and not decrease, but increasing in enthusiasm is something unusual or not everyday thing. How does a disciple keep the momentum of enthusiasm when the spiritual master is not physically present?
Can you summarize the question once again in essence, so I don't get too broad with my answer?
Okay.
You mean what keeps you going?
Yeah, what keeps you going after the physical departure of the spiritual master?
Well, since it is a personal question, I can answer you personally.
Okay.
I mentioned it somewhat before already. I have no idea what else to do. Really. So I'm not waking up in the morning, rolling around in ecstasy of love of Godhead. I have a duty. I feel deeply, deeply obliged to Srila Prabhupada. I don't want to embarrass him, because devotees address me all the time like, oh, this is Prabhupada disciple. I tell them, well, I hope so. Because I'm disciple only to the degree I act like a disciple. So there's a deep obligation towards Srila Prabhupada. I don't want to embarrass him. Prabhupada himself said it on a certain point. He said, don't act so foolishly. You embarrass me. Because people think, oh, this is the disciples of Prabhupada. And then they go, yeah, but they act in a kind of strange way. So that reflects, on the Guru. So we shouldn't embarrass our Guru. That's one motivation, he came to give us something so precious and so unique and so special. And even in devotional terms, he could do also other things, Yeah. Oh, I saw one ISKCON Guru losing temper on a certain point. And he said something so straightforward and so honest. I never forget that moment. It's not about Prabhupada, okay? This was my good brother, who on a certain point really lost a little bit the temper on a Vyasa-sang. And he said to his disciples, you know what? If I would now fire you all and rent some bunch of karmis, I could do much better in terms of management. And everybody realized, yeah, he is close to the truth. It was a very rare moment. Normally, gurus don't say that. But he somehow really lost the temper, and he said, okay, if I would fire you now all and rent some bunch of karmis, I would do much better. Okay? It was a practical management, So, and everybody was quiet and realized, yeah, he is quite close to the truth. And he did it on purpose just to cut down the pride of his disciples who were thinking, oh, we are doing great things. And actually we did. I saw really great things happening in Krishna consciousness. But somehow everybody started to think he is the source of that action. And he is good. He is an achievement, I did it. Great. So just to cut down the pride, he said this. But essentially, it's true. We are only useful to the degree which we are blessed and empowered by spiritual master and Krishna. So we should always know that, and we are obliged. We have a deep, deep obligation towards Srila Prabhupada, who got on that boat, died several times on the way practically, just so we can get some Krishna consciousness. He didn't have to do that, really. Now, of course, he said, I did it because my spiritual master told me. That's how he felt obliged to his spiritual master. So it's a sense of obligation we have here, which at least we should try not to embarrass, Srila Prabhupada and his movement, That's a source of simple and practical motivation, actually. And then we shouldn't also embarrass ourselves. Prabhupada gave us some dignity, Yeah.
Mm.
Because like Sanskrification in itself, it's humiliating, okay? If you see a lusty man, if you see a greedy man, it's very humiliating, actually, when you look at such a person, He's just running around and he's victimized by his senses. That's a kind of humiliating thing. So Prabhupada gave us some dignity. Dignity means that we may actually feel these things. We may be tempted, but we don't have to follow this. Prabhupada gave us some idea. And he gave us also a way how to regulate our lives. Okay? He said, okay, you are becoming undignified, agitated brahmachari, then get married. That's a dignified way to address the problem. He didn't say to solve the problem. He said to address the problem, to regulate it, okay? Yeah? I'm working on the other side of the Grihastha tunnel. I would call it a tunnel, So I'm a little bit out of that tunnel. So, I don't want to be too specific and too autobiographic, but Prabhupada gave us dignity. And for me, like after being trained as a brahmachari and being on Sankirtan and all this, it was very, very heavy to get married. It was very difficult, and I'm not alone. I experienced, many of my godbrothers who had to assume certain positions. Yeah. Not because they wanted to, but because they had to. We have to do the needful. Okay. And that's actually the rational approach to the whole thing. And Prabhupada gave us the ability to do this. He gave us such a wonderful ways how to regulate and dignify our lives. So why should we compromise this whole thing? For what? For some cheap type of sense gratification? Come on. Embarrass him, embarrass ourselves, ending up looking really like idiots, So why should we do that? We owe it to Prabhupada. We owe it to Krishna to conduct our lives in a dignified fashion. That's simple, I think, a basic kind of motivation one can have, one should have. So, but to speak of the ultimate goals and facilities Prabhupada gave us to actually achieve love of Godhead, to actually go back home, back to Godhead. These are very, very high goals, but Prabhupada was most encouraging, and he said, it is possible. It is possible even for you to do that. So why not try and be grateful to Prabhupada that he gave us such a wonderful way to conduct our lives. Yeah.
Thank you so much for these beautiful answers to this question. So devotees,
they are
if
finished.
anyone has any question or comments, devotees, if anyone still has any question or comments, it's Grace Prabhu. But if no one has any other question, maybe we'll have to allow Prabhu to go now.
Otherwise, I am reachable. If somebody wants to contact me personally, it's anytime possible via my webpage or whatever, manidhara.com, something like that. If somebody wants to have more personal exchange or ask something, I'm anytime available for that. So feel free to do so. It's going to be about Prabhupada.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Prabhuji, for that. Okay.
Thank you.
So, but before you go, devotees, since there are no questions, any further questions, we have to allow people to go. So we request all of the devotees to please kindly unmute themselves. Let us loudly chant a powerful Hare Krishna Maha Mantra to appreciate His Grace Manidhara Prabhu. To please to chant the loud Hare Krishna to appreciate him for this wonderful class. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna,
Krishna,
Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Titaram Pavravyo Vaishnavavyo Namo Namaha.
His Grace Manidhara Prabhu ki.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much.